Hello. Hi, my friends. Happy day. Welcome to another gathering of the Salt Circle. I am Daniela, your host your guide, your speaker for today, whatever you want to call me, but definitely just look at me as a friend and someone who you could be honest and authentic with. This is a judgment-free zone. Nothing is taboo here. I'm really trying to make this as inclusive and as freeing a space as possible. So definitely feel free to comment your experiences, your opinions, or your questions. Nothing is, going to be, put under a microscope. This is a free place to experiment with thought, to share our triumphs and our failures, and to just support each other in an authentic and genuine way. Um, every Wednesday we gather to discuss death, dying, and bereavement. And I think this is our 11th episode of doing this particular topic every Wednesday. So if you've been with us, congratulations, 11. That's a great number, right? If you are tuning in for the first time, then, welcome. Glad to have you in this experience, and I'm glad that you're here. You being here just shows that you are doing work on your internal self, and you are aware of things you want to change about yourself, or at least know and understand about yourself. And that kind of work, that shadow work, is an incredible and transformative journey to go on, and I commend you on it. So, welcome. Um, I guess we'll just get right into it. So, like I said, every Wednesdays we talk about shadow work, or not shadow work. We talk about death, dying, and bereavement in, I guess in the lens of shadow work, but more specifically, really dealing with, that grief journey and that part of life, death, which is seen as taboo and no one really talks about it. So this Wednesday, I really wanted to kind of focus on survivor's guilt and bereavement, that part of death, dying, and bereavement. A lot of people have been asking me, what exactly is bereavement? Is it just, another word for grief? Then why not just call it death, dying, and grief? And that's such a valid question. And I'm sure a lot of people share that, same question. So bereavement is a situation. Bereavement is a state of being, to be bereaved. Bereavement is when someone is going through a loss and they are dealing with grief. So, grief is a part of bereavement, but it's not all that there is to bereavement. Bereavement is a multifaceted situation. It's an identity changer. You went from being a wife to being a widow. You went from having a father to only having one parent and having to kind of explain that for the rest of your life, if it ever comes up. So there's a lot of changes that happen with society, community, and how we present ourselves and how people understand who we are. And then there's changes, bureaucratically, legally, who has the power of attorney? Is there a will? Does the house go into probate? What if they want to give their organs, but their spouse doesn't agree to that? What happens then? What if they can't be buried in the same burial ground? What then? There's all these things that can happen, right? Um, so just like there's so many things that can happen with the dying or death process, bereavement has a lot of facets to it, right? And I'm so sorry if you're new here. I lose track of my thoughts very quickly. So comments to keep me on track are very appreciated. So bereavement is when you are actively grieving. It's when you are going through these identity changes, these bureaucratic processes that are going to affect taxes, health insurance, the systems that are in place. Then you're going to go through, emotional changes. You're going to grieve. You're going to go through denial, maybe. Maybe you are numb and not grieving, and then it turns into complex grief. Maybe you turn into a fucking slut. I don't know. People deal with shit differently, right? And I guess we can say it's all valid. But I honestly genuinely feel like we at least owe it to ourselves to be aware of why we're doing the things that we do. And that includes when we grieve and when we are bereaved. Um, Bereavement can also come from a lot of different sources. And this is kind of, the meat of today's topic. So, bereavement is when you are grieving a loss. You can be bereaved and there's not a death, or there was a death a couple years ago and just now you're starting to feel bad about it. Maybe someone stopped taking their medication and relapsed on drugs and went missing, and you've never heard from them since. And it's been a couple of years, and you think finally, maybe, yeah, maybe they did fucking die. Your friend's gone forever, and there's nothing you can do, and there's never going to be any closure, and you'll never find out what happened. Or what if you meet a relative that you had fond memories of? Now you meet them as an adult and you see that they were a hoarder and an alcoholic and they didn't care about you as a kid. That's why you had so much fun with them, because there was no rules. And then you grieve the person you thought they were, the relationship you thought that would come about, right? There can be so many ways we can grieve or be in grief for relationships, people, or even expectations. I've grieved thoughts. I feel like everyone's grieved a pet. You lose a house and you grieve that property. You wanted to grow up there. You wanted to have it forever, turn it into an Airbnb. I don't fucking know. And then all of a sudden it has to get sold because it was in someone's will and they had 5 witnesses and you can't contest it, right? So many situations can come up that can cause us to enter a period of sorrow and grief and unexplained upheaval of existentialism, whatever it is. And I think with me also, I've realized bereavement can occur with people you've never even met, for example. And a lot of my videos, I talk about certain topics, specifically looking through the scope of generational dysfunction, childhood abuse or neglect, just dysfunctional, chaotic upbringings. And as an adult survivor of that, how to actually navigate these already fucked up or taboo situations like a relative's dying, navigating codependency, doing shadow work on your own self and seeing why every fucking relationship you get into fails. You know what I mean? So with me, and I don't know if you've seen any of my other videos or if even know, but whatever. I grew up in the aftermath of a section of the family tree being removed. So I grew up in the removed section. So nobody knew of me. Grandma and grandpa, the people that predominantly who were related to me, predominantly raised me, my grandparents, my paternal grandparents, they were cut off from their siblings and they had each of them more than 10 siblings, right? And all of their siblings had kids, yada, yada, yada. Huge family, right? Huge, huge, huge family. I never knew any of them. And I never even had the inclination to think about an extended family until, you know, college, basically. I never really even thought about it. I never knew they existed. I never, nobody ever spoke of them. There was no pictures. They never came to visit. There was nothing. I just never thought, no, nothing. So the entirety of my 20s, I've known that there's been this mysterious, gigantic, intricate family tree that I just had no part of, and lots of behaviors and identity points that I had in my 20s was almost trying to cope with that alienation. I really felt so separated from everyone and everything. And when people would talk about families or I would see holiday things, I'd become very triggered. And I think subconsciously it's because that's what I really wanted and needed at that time. And subconsciously, I knew that there were people. It wasn't like my family all died in some disaster. Like there were people out there that just didn't want anything to do with me of no fault of my own. I was not my fault. I was a product of my dad getting an immigrant pregnant, and I couldn't, all the things that happened after that were not my fault. Things that happened before that were not my fault. I was just born into this really chaotic situation with a lot of uh you know undercurrents of aggression and complexity. Just like they're all fucking immigrants, but they all hated each other and were like low key racist. I don't understand it. Um, so the entirety of me in my 20s was like that. So now I'm in my 30s. And the other week I, went on Facebook for the first time since college, basically. And I, lost both of my paternal grandparents, like very recently, not very recently, but pretty recently. And I don't know, I went on to my grandfather, his Facebook page, because he was always a very technically savvy old man. Like he liked gadgets and he thought the internet was cool. So he had a Facebook page. And seeing all of these random ass people with the same last name as me and my grandfather commenting, "Oh, Uncle Paul, I'm so sad you died," ah, la, 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 la," and shit like that made me so incredibly angry for so many reasons, right? But another part of it that I'm going to focus on is the grief that I felt, this immense period, an episode of missed out. It's almost like the entire school went on a field trip and I had to stay in the cafeteria because I was too poor or something. Not that that's ever happened to me. But you know what I mean? It's just like, who the fuck are these people? What do you mean, like, they knew my grandfather, who's basically a father to me, who died alone because I couldn't fucking cope with my father's drug addiction and what he was doing to my grandfather, and no one wanted to help? Like, what do you mean all these people were fucking there? And to take in that information and really see the magnitude of how many people, right, just made me feel so almost, I just felt so bad. I was just like, damn. And then I felt angry at myself. Like, well, if I had a Facebook, then I would have messaged them and I would have got my grandpa help. It's my fault that he died the way he did. And when I do these inflammatory jumps to conclusions like that are literally only constructed to make me hate myself, I think that's neither here nor there. It's yes or no. We don't know. It doesn't matter. That's not the question. The question is we're sad about that no one came to help and no one spoke to me. They all must know that I exist. Everyone knows that my dad had a kid. I don't think anyone knows my name though, which is also sad. So to go into a state of bereavement over the loss of family members that I feel like I could have had I not had the dad and mom that I did, which is fucked up because if I didn't, then I wouldn't have them as a family anyway, right? And then just feeling like, because I was creeping on, I guess he's a cousin of mine, Christopher. I have no fucking idea. I have no idea. He's in Staten Island. And I'm looking at like, he has a bunch of nieces and nephews, and he has sisters out the ass, and everyone gets together for dinner on Sundays, and everyone sees each other every holiday, and everyone knows each other. And even people that I have heard of, the random relatives here and there, are liking and commenting on this guy's stuff. And I'm like, so you guys fucking you're really actually connected. And so it just feels like I feel so uncool. I feel like I have fucking leprosy and people are just staying away from me. And to grieve the person I could have been had I had that network of support, that family, that dynamic of family that wasn't what I actually had, the dysfunction that I was born into and left with because no one wanted to deal with Polly's daughter. I think everyone assumed I'd be the same as him. So they just kind of washed their hands of that branch of the tree forever. And I still haven't ever heard, I don't know. I don't think anyone knows I exist. And I think that your parents have a huge part in connecting you to your family. So, I struck out there. So that bereavement can come in so many ways, right? And it could be brought on by such fucking bullshit like Facebook. Don't even feel bad about it though. We have to work through these uncomfortable feelings and at least meet them at the door when they do come knocking and they want to be seen and heard and met and looked at. Um, and I know I say that while I'm like smoking marijuana and drinking some alcohol, but it's really important to not run from these feelings. It's really important to sit with these uncomfortable feelings and see why they make us uncomfortable and what we can do to lessen that impact and go through, maybe I want to talk to Christopher. Maybe I practice, what would I say to these relatives? And I can get it out that way. But all this shadow work is, it's hard work and it's uncomfortable work and it's going to be brutal work. Like, I don't actually want to think about what I would say to these relatives. I'd probably lose my fucking shit because I have such survivor's guilt that, not only did both my grandparents die, but they died in such undignified ways. And then I'm just here unscathed. And I think when you deal with codependency and you deal with abuse, you always are expecting bad things to happen to you and you always feel like you deserve it. So when nothing bad is happening, you almost feel like there's just something wrong. Your environment feels wrong to you, which is a very disturbing way to go about your reality. Um, And like I was saying before with bereavement, just like it can come in so many different ways, we can bereave any relationship, any dynamic, any loss. We can be propelled into an episode of bereavement, which is comes with guilt, but also a lot of other emotions like survivor's guilt. Um, and I grieved several friends who I thought were going to be lifelong friends of mine, and they turned into fucking crack whores. I don't even know what else to say about it. They turned into fucking like I don't even have the insults. You know what I mean? And these are like my best fucking friends. And for them to fall off so hard, and I came from a dysfunctional upbringing. And, I wasn't really good at shadow work in my 20s, but I saw this pattern, this reoccurring pattern of everyone in my life is a drug addict. Everyone in my life is a thief and a liar and super chaotic. And I don't want that. And but whatever. So I grieved the loss of these friends. I grieved the abandonment of what I thought our lives as friends forever would be like, going to each other's weddings, seeing each other every day. Um, also grieving, I think, and this might be more true as the older you get, but the friends that you had in your teenage years and in your 20s, you won't readily find that same caliber of closeness. So it's almost you grieve that period of your life where silliness and fun and friendship was just abundant. And the loss of having that source of happiness, of camaraderie, of mutual weirdness, it's hard to go without. And you definitely grieve it, I think. Um, One friend in particular I have a lot of trouble with is a girl named Jessica. We were like sisters growing up. I can't even explain how close we were. Her mom fostered me. We were so close, but I realized the fostering is what ultimately was like a real detriment to her. Like I whatever. And she wouldn't curse. She she was such a good girl. She was such a good girl, and all of a sudden she was like microwaving pills and smoking cigarettes. And it was just like, what the fuck happened? Like night and day. And she fell into really bad drug use. She became a complete shell of the person that I knew. And I felt so guilty not saving her, basically. And I know from my father, like, you can't save people. You cannot rationalize what they're irrational. You cannot force people to get better. And to come to that same brick wall in the middle of the road with my best friend, and then having to stick to my guns and allow this person to really fall off, and then to just properly allow myself to go through those emotions of grieving that friend, of that friendship, of the plans we had, of the person I thought she was, of the love I thought she had for me, because she fucked my boyfriend, she stole my furniture. This bitch, she doesn't, I don't think she's even, she really is just gone. The person that I loved is just gone. And to grieve that as well, it's almost like a kind of death. But I think it's almost unfair for me to say that because throughout life, we all change drastically, impulsively, and innumerably, immeasurably. We are always changing. And I wish she did not change like that. I wish we were still friends. I would have done anything at all. I offered for her to move out to Idaho with me after a huge falling out because I didn't even care who was right or wrong. I was like, just like, we need a fresh start. Come move out, please. Like, let's just try. And she was fucking my boyfriend and doing meth, whatever. I don't know. I can't. And I had no idea. I had two other friends confront me and be like, you need to back, like, she doesn't care. And I was like, what do you mean? What do you mean? And they're like, she's fucking Greg. And I was like, oh, so stupid. And to think of all the things her and I had been through, being so impoverished, being so behind the eight ball, having, all accounted for, just being doomed as children, surrounded by other doomed children. And we really had each other. And despite everyone else falling off, Michaela's mom was a heroin dealer and sold drugs to a DP and got life imprisonment. And Susan's mom and dad were like low key, like CP dealers, and Melinda's parents were swingers and, had like dead bodies in the backyard or whatever. And like we're keeping their son's drug addiction low key because he kept like, whatever. Gina was fucking murderers. Dana's mom, what? Dude, there is so much. There is so much shit. The worst of it too is Caressa and this other girl named Cherokee, Jordan. Oh my gosh. I think about all these other kids that like didn't really have the same ability to crawl out tooth and nail. Mickey, Mikey, Smiley, and Zycal. All these kids that, despite everything, somehow Jess and I, we were really making it out. We were doing well in school. We were smart. We never got pregnant, never got drug addictions. We were getting driver's licenses, no arrests, getting jobs, going to college. And she fell off too. And it was almost like watching like the last ship in the harbor just sank. And it's just like, dude, you were so close. Like, what happened? And almost feeling like, she should have made it out, not me. She was smarter than me. She was prettier than me. She was funnier than me. She was nicer than me, more creative than me. Uh, and she didn't. And it's just feeling almost like the grief of not being able to share my present moment with someone, that grief I think is really hard too, and it comes from, at least with me, really wanting to share. And I think that comes from, my parents that give a shit about me. My grandparents let me live in their house, but that was kind of, it. My friends though, like Jess and the other people, we somehow managed through this fucking ragamuffin hobbled life as children in this really chaotic situation. I don't know, it almost felt like, I don't know. And sometimes now I even think of myself, like, what am I doing to make worthy that I've made it out? What have I done to justify that it was me and not her? And that's hard too because, I'm so mean to myself. Like she got the drug addiction. She chose to do that, not me. I chose to do everything that I thought was right, like work and do what I had to do and pay my bills. And why do I look at myself like, the drug addict, yeah, they're still better. So I think survivor's guilt might come from a place of insecurity or a place of, low self-worth. And again, this is just talking from my own experience. That's what I try to do when I do shadow work or look introspectively, just talking about the problem and just experimenting with different solutions, resolutions, or ruminations, and allowing myself to subconsciously and consciously crawl around different avenues of explanation, of different memory that could connect to this stuff. And I think, with me, it really does, I don't know. Maybe I just really loved my friends so much that I'll always think that they're better than me, but I don't know. Sorry, my dog's snoring, and I thought it was a bear outside, but no, he's just snoring. But let me just click on something really quickly. Okay, cool, cool, cool. I see, I see. Thank you for the comments. All right. No, I will not show my feet, and we will keep it pushing. So that's kind of I feel like everything that I wanted to talk about today when it comes to bereavement and survivor's guilt, I think guilt and grief are very closely related. So I feel like whenever you're grieving, you will also feel guilty. And I don't think it's always easy to articulate what this guilt is coming from. Do you really feel guilty that you're alive, or is it that you feel guilty that the friendship ended the way it did? Do you feel less than worthy because of everything else in you? Do you, like, I think the guilt that comes with grief is just because these things to point at where this grief or where this guilt is coming from. It's easier just to say, I'd rather not exist. I'd rather not deal with it. Just take me instead. Put them here. They wouldn't do this. They would be creative. They'd be funny. They'd be working on the cure to cancer. They'd be whatever. I'm just here ruminating and I feel like a piece of shit. And I think, that that's a part of deflection that's easier to do. I don't know. But definitely looking forward to seeing what everyone has to comment, even though, no one's really commenting except for asking to look at my feet, which I'm not going to do. I appreciate that you're curious, but we're trying to keep this in the death, dying, and bereavement topic worlds. Um, So I'm just gonna sit here for a little bit longer. And I want to invite this time to just kind of be a time where we could just sit and be grounded, sit and really introspectively examine ourselves and our internal dialogue with ourselves and where that dialogue, what that voice is connected to. Is it our inner child? Is it a secret self that we keep hidden from the world? So just really sit here and go inward and think about bereavement and to think about survivor's guilt. Well, my back hurts. So I can't think of anything else. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put some music on and kind of just wrap up the show. Um, Make this a really pointed opportunity to again ground yourself, see where all of your muscles are, relax those muscles, and put yourself authentically in your body. And then just really be nice to yourself. So, I appreciate everyone coming and taking the hour, not even, it's been maybe 40 minutes. Well, taking the time to do this work and to learn about yourself and to show up to these feelings and be real about the fact that you're feeling them. You feel guilty for the fact that you're alive and someone isn't, or you feel super bereaved and you can't function. All of that is valid, you know? And you got to work through it. And the only way to work through it is to work through. And you can, my friend. I really do believe in you. And by you showing up here, like that's work in itself. That's 40 minutes of hard work, you know? And I hope that you got some use out of all of the stuff I've been blabbering about. I hope that you enjoyed everything that I said and, like you find it useful or entertaining. So please comment, subscribe, and share if you do like my videos. I try to post every Monday and Wednesday. Wednesdays are for death, dying, and bereavement, and Mondays are for shadow work and self sorcery, inner child meeting and inner self healing, all that good stuff. So, definitely hope to see you guys again. And I really hope, you enjoyed the show. So let me put this on and we will wrap it up. Excuse me.
Are you the next martyr, or merely a pawn of fate? Bearer of the curse, I will remain by your side till this frail hope shatters.